missed my monthly reading journal ritual last month. I was travelling when May hit and more than 10,000 miles away from my journals, so I have a bit to catch up on. Let's talk April reads, May readathons, reading journal stationery, and get my journal ready to track my June reading too. Hi, I'm Erin, and I know my reading journal series is a favourite on my channel for a lot of you, so thanks for being patient with me. I've got 2 months of reading journal updates to make and a mix of books to discuss. So starting from the beginning seems like the best place. I'm going to jump into the very beginning of my journal and add the book covers here for the books that I have finished in this time period. You can consider this a little bit of a teaser about what we're going to discuss later on. I have pre-printed and cut all of these with my Cricut ahead of time so they were ready to go and put them in this little sticker book. I have a video about how I make my book cover stickers with my Cricut, which is linked down in the description in case you want to check that out. And I also documented the process of making this sticker book in one of my vlogs earlier this year too, so that is also linked in case you want to see that. Heading forward now, we're going to my Page Majors spread, which is the name of my book club. We read a different book together every month and then discuss it over on my private Discord server, which is just for channel members. So if you're keen to get in on the book club action, there is a QR code on the screen here, or you can hit the join link down below next to the subscribe button and find out more about that. Our June book for the Page Majors is The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. I had forgotten to print a tiny book cover for my Year of Goober tracker over here, so I'm just adding that one in the space. And then we can get into my April reading tracker, which feels like an entire lifetime ago, really. On the right page, I have a calendar that I use to track the start and end dates of the books that I'm reading, just in colours that match the stationery I used for the theme of those pages. I set these April tracking pages up in my last reading journal video, so if you're interested in links to any of the items already on these pages, you can find those links in that video's description. I almost always use Tombow dual brush pens for this because they are the perfect sized brush to fit into the 5mm dot grid in most bullet journal style journals, so they're just perfect for this purpose. And for my fine liner, I'm using my Tom Studio Lumos Pro Duo. I believe I have the 03 tip in it at the moment. I'm using that to add the title of each book onto the line that represents the time that I spent reading that book. Some of this data is a little imprecise this month. I'm getting confused about dates and things because I crossed the international date line and spent time in a very different time zone, so a few of those times are a little bit fuzzy. At the time I'm setting up my monthly pages, I usually like to include the book covers for any books that I'm pretty confident that I'll read in the coming month. Either I've already started them at the time I'm setting it up, or I have a library hold, or have already borrowed a book from the library. But I was wrong about one of them here. I didn't end up reading our May Book Club book in April like I expected to, so I ended up peeling that one up and replacing it with a different book cover. Also, the star rating stickers I'm using here are from a sticker sheet that I actually designed and is available for purchase as a digital download from my online store, so I'll have those linked in the description for you as well. You'll see them in use quite a bit throughout this video. Before we continue, let's do a little mid-year checkup on my reading journal. I'm using the B5 Leaf and Texture Journal from today's video sponsor Tiefossi, and it's still in perfect condition. I've used about half of it, so that bodes well for it getting me through the rest of the year, both in terms of how many pages are left and how well it's handling the use. If you haven't come across Tiefossi before, they make beautifully designed journals for people who genuinely use their notebooks. The paper is lovely and thick, the binding holds up so well over time, and they've become one of my favourite options for chunky, well-loved journals that still feel sturdy months later. Tiefossi recently released their Lotus and Koi collection, which is stunning. The vibes are elegant, peaceful, and dreamy. Very main character journaling montage. I have the A5 size in pink and the square in red. They're exquisite. To celebrate the release of the Lotus and Koi journals, I've teamed up with Tiefossi for a giveaway. 3 lucky winners will get to choose any notebook from Tiefosi's range, which is honestly such a dangerous level of power to hand to stationery people. To enter, you'll need to be following both me and Tiefossi across both YouTube and Instagram, and leave a comment down below to let me know how many books you've completed so far this year. This giveaway is open internationally. I'll draw the winners on Wednesday the 24th of June my time, and I'll pop a post up on my posts tab to announce the winners as well as responding to their comments, so make sure you check your YouTube notifications. If you'd like to pick up something for yourself, you can also use my code ErinSmith for 10% off across the Tiefossi store. Huge thanks again to Tiefossi for sponsoring this video, and now let's continue making this journal even chunkier. I'm typically a digital reader, but I have a beautiful physical copy of this book, so I thought I'd just take a second to show it off. This is What Fury Brings by Tricia Levenseller, and it is the first book that I finished in April. I've been trying out the Owl Crate Romantasy subscription, which is how this book ended up in my hot little hands. And I always really enjoy the typography on the covers of fantasy and romantasy books, so I like to try to emulate that in my journal sometimes. So I'm doing that with a grabby acrylic marker. I didn't print out the cover version of the book that I have, which was a little bit of an oversight. I probably should have done that. The version I've printed is just the standard one, I think, and it has different colors to the ones I'm going for in my journal here, which kind of match the physical book that I have. So a little incongruous maybe, but I try not to be too picky about what goes in my reading journal. It's more about having fun and enjoying the process than it is about everything looking spectacular at the end of the day for me. So the fact that the book cover won't perfectly match the colours that I use for the decoration is kind of okay, and the fact that I forgot to thicken the downstroke of the R in Fury, also totally okay. Despite the fact that I have a lovely physical copy of this book, I actually listened to the audiobook version. I'm using this washi tape from the Quirky Cup Collective. This one's called Baltius in the black and white version to emulate the columns that are on the cover of the book you can see over there on the left. And I'm going to use this PET tape that I got from Journal Say a little while ago with pink and black flowers to layer over the top of those columns of washi tape and add a little bit more of the color from the text at the top of the page. This one's not a pre-cut PET tape, so I have to cut it out myself by hand with scissors, but that's okay because it's only one page in my journal, so I don't think it's too labor intensive. For a whole bullet journal theme, I think that would be a little bit frustrating, but for this it's okay. I'm going to place my book cover first because I didn't really think about where I was going to put that, but it has to go somewhere here because I printed one, and fill in some of the spaces with my flowers before we add all of the actual book information. And I'm using one of my own sticker sheets for this again. This one you can also buy on my website as a digital download, plus one of my Peach rating stickers too for my rating system. Now, about this book. Absolutely fascinating premise for this story. We're set in a matriarchal fantasy world, and this one is from dual points of view. One is Olera, she's the princess of this matriarchal society and she wants to become the queen. So as part of her plot to do that, she kidnaps a prince from a neighbouring brutish region where men are in charge. And she thinks she's kidnapped a kind of a spare prince, but the one she's kidnapped is actually the heir to the throne, the oldest son. Bit of a case of mistaken identity, and he's like, you know what, let her think that, because then she'll underestimate me. What's fascinating is watching this prince, his name is Sanos, confront all of the things that he took for granted in his life in this new society where everything is flipped on its head. This book does a really good job of inverting the tropes and inverting stereotypes and making you kind of think about the things we take for granted in our society with gendered roles and things. So I think it was really creative from that point of view, but it also fell a little bit flat for me. I didn't feel like the writing was anything too special. I kind of wanted more from it. Hence my 3.4 rating. So it's not bad by any means, but it isn't one of my favorite books of the year either. I'm going to put the reviews for the next two books on the same page. These ones I didn't feel like I had the right stationery to really do them justice. One of them in particular maybe isn't one of my favorites either, so I didn't want to give it too much effort, but the other one I actually really loved. So let's talk about, first of all, Under Milkwood by Dylan Thomas. Technically not a book, I guess, although I'm counting it as one because it has been published in text forms. It was originally a radio show, so it really does lend itself to audiobook format here. I first listened to this in English class in school. It's from 1954, so it's quite a bit older than my typical reading area, and I have always thought that Dylan Thomas's prose is beautiful, it's delicious to listen to, but I didn't remember much of the story except for the whole like slow black at the beginning in the first intro section. Oh, this book is a little creepy. You're listening to the inner monologues and the dreams of the people who live in this fictional Welsh town called Larragub, which is literally bugger all spelled backwards. And look, I don't think most people's inner monologues are going to score them sainthood or anything. Obviously, thoughts and dreams are not actions. I don't think I'll do this one again, but I did enjoy the poetry of it. I did have an okay time, and it is very short, so it did indeed help me get my book count up for the month, which is useful, because as you'll find out later, I didn't read a great deal in May. So 3.3 on my Peach rating scale for this one, just transferring the data back to my reads page as well. And if you haven't come across my Peach rating system before, I have a video explaining how it works in case you think you might like to give it a go. Next up, we've got Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson, which is the second book in the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. I read the first book back in, I think, like November of 2024. And I really enjoyed that one, and I really enjoyed this one. I don't really think of myself as a lover of a murder mystery or anything like that, but I think when it's packaged in YA, it's a lot more approachable for me. I think this book is originally set in the UK, and there is a version that's been released for a US market where it's set in the US. The ones I had access to were the US versions, and I didn't find it to be detrimental, although I haven't read the original ones. But I gave it 4 out of 5 across all of my categories, so plot, enjoyment, artistry, characters, and heart, which gave it a score of 4 stars. I have always loved the teenage girl detective kind of a trope, so this one does kind of play into that, and like, if you can imagine Veronica Mars hosting a podcast about the murder that she solved last year, this is kind of that vibe. There is one more book in the series, and also I believe a prequel novella, so I do want to continue the series, which means it's worthy of going on my series tracker, so we've jumped back to the beginning of the journal to add that onto this spread here. At this point, I had to take a quick break to print some more of my book data stickers so I could continue on. So we've got 2 fresh ones here with 8 stickers each on those. And I'm jumping into a review page set up here for a book that I have plenty of stationery to suit, actually. This book is Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood, and it had been on my reading list since my Bewitched book challenge last year in October, which is an annual spooky season reading challenge that I run. Unfortunately, my library hold didn't come through in time for me to read it in October, so I put it on hold for a while and then finally got to it in April. This one's kind of a cozy paranormal romance. I was going to say small town, but it's set in London, but I'd say it has small town vibes. So for stationery here, I've paired up a pink washi tape from Notebook Therapy from the Moonlit Blush washi tape set. Another Notebook Therapy tape, this one is from the Secret Garden Traveler's Notebook gift set. I'm lettering the title of the book with some stickers. These ones I had a little bit of trouble fitting though in the space. I had to keep rejigging things. I'm going to end up going for a bit of a staggered, fun, bouncy letter instead of straight across like this, simply because it won't fit otherwise. I bought these sticker sheets from the Greyfriars art store in Edinburgh, but I just gave it a little Google, and you can find them in all sorts of places if you search for Anita's outline stickers. Script alpha uppercase seems to turn up these ones specifically, and they're rose gold. This was a cute book. It was a very easy one to read. If you have enjoyed books like the Glimmer Falls series by Sarah Hawley or the Graves Glen series by Erin Sterling, I think you would like this. It's that kind of low stakes, cozy fantasy romance, and they can be a little bit silly and over the top sometimes, so this story follows a witch called Belle. She's a little bit hapless, she's never really felt super connected with her witchiness, but coming up on her 30th birthday, she has to do kind of a witchy equivalent of a confirmation. She has to like prove herself as a witch in order to not lose her powers forever. And things don't go great for her. She finds herself essentially cramming and studying for a makeup test with a very unexpected magical mentor. She's being tracked by a really attractive but kind of curmudgeonly magical proctor, and she's doing all of this in secret because nobody knows about witches in the general human world. So I think that's quite normal in these kind of stories, but she's trying to juggle all of this while working at a bookstore where she absolutely hates her boss. I came out of this one slightly on the warmer side of lukewarm, I think, but then the version of the audiobook I listened to had an interview with the author at the end, and she sounds like such a sweetheart, and a few of the things she discussed actually raised my opinion of the book. So I'm giving this one 3.9 on my Peach rating scale, which rounds up really nicely to 4 stars. Also, Belle has a little cat familiar, so that's always going to win at some points in my favour, and if I get to use cats on a reading journal page, then it's been a good day. And my last book for April, this one is from Brigid Kemmerer, one of my favourite authors of the past couple of years. If you've seen any of my reading journal videos in the past, like 2 years, you've probably heard me bang on about her. This one is a little bit different though. This one's called Warrior Princess Assassin. I've had these lovely washi paper sheets. I originally got these from Journal Say, oh my gosh, a while ago, a couple of years ago probably. They're not on Journal Say anymore, but I have found them randomly in a few other places on the internet, so I'll link them on Etsy. And I'm teaming those up with some stamps from Printing Stamps London, so 2 different sets that I got from the same wonderful stall at Portobello Road Market in London. The larger ones are the Chiswick set. I've had those for a couple of years, and the smaller ones are very new to my collection. I've used these in my journals before, and I always have a bit of trouble with them on the curved parts of pages. They go okay in the middle when it's flat, but closer to the spine like that, not so much. So instead, I'm just going to stamp them onto some sticker paper and then cut those out and stick that to the page instead of doing it directly onto the paper. I'm going for a drop capital system here, so just the first letter of each word, the larger ones for the book title, Warrior Princess Assassin, and the smaller ones for the author's name, Brigid Kemmerer. Just using my letter stamps that I use for everything ever as the letters in between. For some reason, I find Brigid Kemmerer's books, as much as I have enjoyed all of them that I've read so far, really difficult to decorate for in my journal. I don't know if that's just because I'm so attached, or if I just don't feel like I have the right stuff. The book covers don't give you a lot to work with. Actually, I think the Defy the Night series is the easiest to decorate for, and funnily enough, also my favourite of hers, still. I made a bit of a mess with my stamp, so I'm jumping in with a white paint marker and just covering those little extra bits up that I didn't want on the page, and I wanted to add some colour to tie everything together, so I've grabbed a Tombow here. This one actually looks a lot darker on the sticker paper than it looks directly on the page, so it's always interesting to see how markers vary on different surfaces. Anyway, how does this book differ to the previous Brigid Kemmerers? I don't feel like I'm giving you a spoiler here because it's in all of the marketing around this book, but this one includes a polyamorous relationship rather than your traditional monogamous romantasy pairing. And if I'm being super honest with you, I wasn't too sure how that was going to go over with me. I did know that going in, so I think it's an important thing to know going into this book, or you might be very shocked. It's also Brigid Kemmerer's first adult romantasy book, and this one does have some spice, so also know that going in if you've read her other books and enjoyed that they were closed door or non-spicy. This one's spicy, only towards the end though, so, you know, it doesn't overdo it or anything. This one has 3 points of view. First of all, there is Jory, the princess whose awful brother, Dane, oh, we hate romantasy Danes, is trying to marry her off for the good of his kingdom. Her childhood best friend Asher, who was from a noble family, they grew up together, but his family was disgraced and he was cast out. But he's an assassin now, so he can still sneak in to visit Jory. And King Maddox Chironan, the man that Jory is being married off to. He's a magical fire wielder, and everyone is really scared of him because he's apparently awful. But is he really? I wanted to represent that fire on the page. This part of this sticker book is not a sticker, but it's on sticker paper, so I'm just going to cut this little decorative bit out and treat it like it is a sticker to go with the fiery throne that I already put down there. I've had this sticker book for a while, and I thought I would get a lot of use out of it, but I'm actually really not getting anywhere near as much as I would have thought. And the medieval tape down the bottom that has the fun shape around the buildings is from Cora Career Crafts. I read this book on ebook on a 14-hour flight, and I think because there was nothing else for me to do, I really locked in, and there were parts of it where I had butterflies. I was like, ooh, this is fun. And even though I'm a monogamous person myself, I found the way the polyamorous relationship was approached in this was quite sensitive. It was still very romantic. The politics and the world building that Brigid Kemmerer is so good at are absolutely present in this story. It's just a little bit more mature. And she almost never takes me where I think she's going to take me, and I do really enjoy that. It's always an adventure. I would recommend checking content warnings before jumping into this one though, because it does deal with some darker themes. Not my favourite Brigid Kemmerer. If I had to rank all of the books, I don't think I'd be putting this one in the top 5 for me, but I did have a really good time with it. I'm very impressed, and I will be definitely continuing the series. This one only came out in August last year, so the next one isn't out yet, but it's called Captive Trader King, and it comes out in November, and I'll be ready. I ended up giving Warrior Princess Assassin 4.1 on the Peach rating scale, so approximately 4 stars, just above. But I zoned out while I was colouring in my star rating and I accidentally gave it 5, so I'm just stealing a star off one of my other stickers to cover it back up. The page was feeling a little bit bottom heavy, so I thought I'd add some little swirlies. I was getting a bit lazy by this point. I'd been journaling for a while, so some little swirlies with my markers because they were already on my desk. Kind of fiery, kind of fantasy, kind of lazy, but they did okay. And some dots too. Since that's everything I read in April, we can turn back a page now and fill out my April reading stats. And I'm taking all of this information directly from Storygraph, which is a free app that I use to track my reading across the month. So it's very easy to get these stats at the end of it. In April, I completed 5 books, a grand total of 885 pages read, and 17.9 hours worth of audiobook. On average, it took me 7 days to finish each book, and the genres I touched on for the month of April were romance, fantasy, LGBTQIA+, young adult, thriller, poetry, and mystery. The library tracker is always a little bit muddy because in instances like What Fury Brings, I bought the book through Owlcrate, but then the version I read was through the library, so I'm counting that as a bought book even though the version I read wasn't. So in the end, I paid for 20% of the books that I read in the month of April, and 80% of them I sourced through the library, although I wrote 60, but I will work that out and correct it. 40% of the books I read this month were digital on ebook and 60% were audio. My average rating for the month was 3.8, which is pretty good. It rounds up to 4, so not a bad rating overall, a pretty good reading month. And my standout book for the month was Warrior Princess Assassin because it got the highest rating. I don't have a book cover to put here though, so I'm just going to write that here until I've printed some more. Let's flip all the way back to the start of the book and update this tracker as well. I have these format stickers that I like to add to the corners here, so I have lots of data on a single page without it being super overwhelming. This is also one of my own sticker sheets that you can buy from my website and download a printable file and make your own. If you have a Cricut, they will cut into little circles like this too. And I'm also going to fill in the star ratings and the Peach rating score for each of these books on this spread too. While we're here, let's update my book bingo. I can colour in the mystery square for Good Girl Bad Blood. I've numbered all my bingo squares so I can write the corresponding book title on the right side, and I'm trying to make sure each square is just one book, so I can't use Good Girl Bad Blood for anything else. I thought I had missed a square, and I'm colouring in literary fiction here for The Midnight Library, which is one I would have talked about in my last video, not realising I'd already applied it to another square, the contemporary fiction square, so I'm gonna have to do something about that. Time to read another literary fiction. And since it was my highest rated book of the month, Warrior Princess Assassin is going in the April spot on my book of the month, and I also coloured it in on my Brigid Kemmerer author tracker. I can cross off a couple of books from my maybe next list. What Fury Brings and Rewitched were both on here, and let's update the Goober Readathon as well. For this one, I'm doing the hot cross bun prompt, which was linked to tradition, and I'm going with Rewitched for that one because there was a lot of family tradition and witchy tradition involved in that story. Now let's talk about May. Not my greatest reading month ever. I ended up only finishing 1 book in May, and that was by the skin of my teeth. I almost didn't make it to any books in May. So I don't think my usual setup where I have a dedicated cover page and then a stats page and then a page to list all the books that I read or started or considered and then a calendar page is gonna cut it for this month. I think we're just gonna condense everything down into a single spread and then just move on. I recently picked up the Maple Cafe pre-cut sticker tape from the washi tape shop. It is so lovely. So I've planned my May theme around that, even though it's just going across one spread. Let's still call it a theme. I had really high hopes of participating in the Goober Readathon hosted by the Goobers Who Read book club, which is lovely Jashi Corinne and Rachel and Monica. And then I only read 1 book, so I won't score very high, but I thought I'd go ahead and track it on this spread anyway. So I'm kind of dividing this spread in half, but diagonally. The lower left half is going to be for the Goober Readathon, and the upper right part is going to be for my reading stats and the books that I completed or started or read some of. I also went ahead and DIY'd myself some header stickers with my Cricut. I've used a font here called Blackadder ITC, which I don't usually love, but it is quite whimsical. I feel like it works for this theme. At the time I printed them, I didn't know what the theme would be though, so the colours don't really work so well, it's just black, but do you know what? I didn't want to do it again, so we're just gonna roll with it. let's talk a little bit about the books that did touch my May in some way. One is A Forgery of Fate by Elizabeth Lim, which was our Page Mages book club book for May, so that makes a lot of sense. It is the only one I finished, so it's getting a star rating sticker underneath. And I'm assigning it to the very first prompt in the Goober Readathon, which is under Kitchen Basics, Food Safety, a book you think you'll like, and I did like it. We'll talk more about that in a second. That means I do have at least 1 point in the Goober Readathon. Go me! I also wrote down the section about a poll-picked book in Part B, the hosting section, under Cozy Cuisine, because we do indeed choose our books via poll in the Page Mages Book Club, but I double-checked the rules and you can't apply a book to both Part A and B, like it can kind of only be one or the other, so unfortunately no points for me on this one. But I did visit a food market with one of the hosts of this challenge. I went to Borough Market in London with Jashi Corinne, so at least I get some points there. Which means I've ended up with a total of 7 points, puts me in the most basic category, but I'm so fine with that. I am a phantom foodie, and proud of it. Most of the time, I print my book cover stickers out with my big home Canon printer, and I cut them out with my Cricut, but when I have just a couple to do, and it's not enough to make a full A4 page, but it's more than just 1 or 2 that I'd wait until next month, I'll grab out my Leanne Pixcut S1, so I'm just printing some extra ones here, as well as my reading stats straight out of the end-of-month Storygraph wrap-up stats. And that means I have the book covers to be continuing with this spread, otherwise I didn't know how much room I was going to need. These are on sticker paper and they're shiny, they're not going to be matte like my other ones, so you might have a bit of trouble with glare seeing things, but I'm adding the book cover here for Meet Me in the Margins by Melissa Ferguson, which is a book I started in May but didn't finish. I'm also adding my Storygraph stats here, which are a little tricky to see, but I only finished 1 book, so there's not a lot to see anyway. And I didn't leave space for, and I'm going to have to make space for, 1 more book cover here. But first I'm going to flick back really quickly to my April tracker pages and just add the book cover for Warrior Princess Assassin in the standout book area. I never allow myself enough room here, my title is always in the way, so I have to move it up a bit, but that's okay, we sorted it out. And I did also make a tiny book cover for A Forgery of Fate to go on the Year of Goober challenge too, because it's the only book I finished, so I'm going to find a way to apply it here. It could actually work for either prompt, so that's handy. Now let's make some space for 1 more book cover for A Steeping of Blood by Hafsa Faisal, which I actually started in April. It's in my April Reads pages. I didn't finish it then. I didn't read any more of it in May, and I've kind of put it on pause now because I really want to give it a good go. I just wasn't in the mood for it, and so it's a book I want to come back to. That's everything I need as far as data for this spread, so I'm just going to fill in the gaps with some more stickers from the Maple Cafe tape and call it a day on the May spread. Thank goodness for the time pressure of running your own book club, or I'm not certain I would have finished this book in May either. So let's set up a spread for A Forgery of Fate by Elizabeth Lim, very kindly suggested for the Page Mages book club by Evie. Shout out to Evie. A large portion of this book takes place in an underwater dragon kingdom, so I'm going with a bit of a watery theme. Thankfully I have some stuff left over from my mermaid theme in my bullet journal, so that's handy. Most of the time when I set up a review page in my journal, it'll be a single page to itself, but for my Page Mages book club reads, I like to give them a full double-page spread, so I can add the discussion questions that we follow to guide our discussion when we talk about the book into my journal as well. I'm pretty sure I finished this book on the last day of May, so huge shout out to Courtney, one of my wonderful Page Mages, a friend and one of my moderators too over on Discord, for coming up with the discussion questions for us for this month, because I was going to be so too slow. This story is a really interesting combination. It's inspired both by the story of Beauty and the Beast and also Chinese mythology. And if you like a slow burn romance like I do, definitely put this one on your list, because this one has got a really good slow burn. I'm also so grateful to this book for finally giving me a chance to use this incredible PET tape from the washi tape shop that I've had for so long they don't even make it anymore. It was called Imperial Glimmer. You can still find it online in a few random places that like stockists still have 1 or 2. I found one on Etsy that I'll link to. Seriously so sad that I haven't been able to use it until now because it's stunning. A Forgery of Fate is another young adult romantic fantasy, which is an area I always really enjoy. I know as someone approaching 40, that's not always normal, but I don't know, I quite like a YA, I can get into them. In fact, if I'm coming out of a reading slump, which I definitely was through May, I think seeking out YA can really help me because it's a lot more accessible than something that is for a more mature reader, so that's a tip. Our protagonist, True, has a very special gift. She's able to see visions of the future and then paint them into existence. But when her father is lost at sea and her family is left with nothing, she's forced to turn to art forgery in order to support her family. To get away from some particularly shady people, she ends up backed into a corner and having to agree to a marriage contract with a dragon prince who promises to take care of her family if she will join him under the sea and try to take down his tyrannical grandfather, Dragon King. I have to be so for real with you, I don't feel like much of this book stuck to me until around the 60% mark. I was listening to the audiobook and I was like, you just have to read the book, Erin, because you have to run a meeting about it. Like, you gotta read the book. I think I was in some sort of low-level nervous system dysregulation because I couldn't focus on anything. Usually if I can't focus on an audiobook, I'll listen to a podcast. Couldn't do that. Couldn't really even listen to music. Like, I kind of just had to be in silence and really rest for a while. And then when I finally kind of snapped out of that, I was at about 60% of the way through this book. And then I locked in. And funnily enough, that's also when the romance things sort of started to kick off. And that's usually what drives me in a story too. I love a love story. I don't know what to tell you. So that helped. I don't often take down quotes from audiobooks. They usually just kind of pass me by. But this one had one so good that I paused it and wrote it in my notes app and went back to check it was correct. At one point, Elang, the dragon prince, says to True, how bleak life would be if we left nothing to chance. And I was like, oh, I like that. So I made sure to add it to my spread, although I almost forgot, but I squeezed it in there. I do kind of wish I'd come to this book at a better time in my reading lifestyle, that I could have enjoyed it a little bit more. I did still enjoy it, but I just wasn't in the headspace for really anything, and that is not this book's fault. I ended up giving it 3.8 on the Peach rating scale, so still a pretty good score, but nothing too astronomical for me. Hopefully I am readjusted enough to dive into our Page Mages book for June soon, which is, as I mentioned earlier, The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. And if you're a Page Mages level channel member, you can join in on our discussion for that one too, if you like. Now onward to my June pages, and I'm being optimistic here and assuming I'm going to read more in June than I did in May. And in fact, because this video is going up a little bit later than I would have liked, I can confirm I've actually already finished 3 books in June. I'm starting out with the Fleur de Lune tape from the washi tape shop. I had forgotten this beauty existed, and then I saw another of my moderators, actually, and lovely friends Bhavna in my Discord, shared a page in her journal that used it, and I was like, oh, thanks for the inspiration. I gotta use that tape too. It's a nice wide one, which in a journal this size, this is a B5, it can be a bit intimidating to try to fill a page sometimes if you're using smaller pieces, but having a nice wide tape like this and just adding a letterbox kind of design top and bottom is a really quick and efficient way to fill it up, so I love that. These gold letter stickers I nabbed from Journal Say a little while ago. They still have them, just be warned these are kind of 3D, so they do kind of make the next page feel a bit strange to write over the top of. If you have these in your journal, just FYI, I had used all of the E's already, so I'm kind of making an E out of the top of an F and the bottom of an L. Came together okay, actually. I'm going back to my usual setup, so I'll have my cover page for the month on the left, my stats page on the right, and then over the page I'll have my list of books read for the month or started or intended, and then the calendar on the facing page too. Naturally, I'm using some more of my own stickers for the reading stats page. These ones are designed around the Storygraph stats, so it's very easy to fill out at the end of the month. Technically, I was missing a couple. I'd already used them on previous stats pages, but I was too lazy to make another sticker sheet, so I'm just gonna improvise. One of them was one of the pie chart stickers. I only had one of those left, so I'm just gonna draw a circle for my other pie chart. And if any of my missing stickers bothers me over the course of the month, then I'll just fix it the next time I'm using my Cricut and make another sticker sheet, and all will be well. I always think that light blue and yellow are a really nice color combination, so I'm going for that with this theme here. This is actually one of the MT official William Morris washi tapes. My friend Jackie picked this up for me when she was in Japan recently because she is such a sweetheart. She knows I love William Morris, so she got me 3 William Morris tapes. They're so nice. There's actually a sticker sheet that I want to tie in here, and this tape is going to be my bridge to do it. Even though there's no yellow in the stuff that's already on the page besides this tape, it was for this sticker sheet here. Since the Fleur de Lune tape has this lace kind of a theme to it, it makes me think of tablecloths and doilies, which makes me think of tea, which makes me think of pretty teacups and teapots. And this sticker sheet of teacups from Sticky, which I think came with one of their advents last year, has so many of the same colours from the Fleur de Lune tape, but I just felt like it needed the yellow to really tie everything together. And it did very well. Also this kind of periwinkle coloured tape, just because I put the June header a touch too high, that's just going to be my filler for that space. And now we can move on to the next spread, which is all about the books read and the calendar. Since I already did horizontal stripes of this tape on the previous spread, I'm going to make them vertical this time and just vary things up a little bit that way. Once again, I have used up all of the stickers of a particular letter. I have no more S left, so I'm going to try to make one kind of less successfully than with the E on the previous page, but it's okay, we'll work with what we've got. I usually set up my calendars with days that are 4 dot grid spaces wide each, but because I ate up some of the space on the right side of this page, I've decided to make them a little bit smaller rather than spilling over onto the left page. So these ones are 4 dot grid spaces tall plus the extra one for the day of the week, and only 3 dot grid spaces wide, but I actually don't think it'll be a problem. Now I get to sprinkle some more teacups around. Here's a little teaser for next month's reading journal video, starting out with one of my book covers for a book I've actually already finished. It's Call It What You Want by Brigid Kemmerer, which is one of her not fantasy YA stories. We'll chat more about that one next month. Also, The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi, of course, because it's our Page Mage's book. And now I'm caught up on my reading journal for April and May, so let's have a flip through all of it from start to finish. Hopefully, if you also have had a reading month that was not so strong, this makes you feel a little bit better about it. I think it's just natural, it just happens. Eventually, the wheel keeps turning and your reading mojo finds you once again. I always like to hear what your favourite reads have been, so if you had any standout books in April or May, please let me know what they were down below. And if you'd like to enter the giveaway with Tiefossi, don't forget to also let me know how many books you've completed so far this year. As always, there are links in the description to as much of the stationery that I've used as possible, so you can also get your hands on anything that you like the look of. Just in case you'd like to keep talking books with me, here is a link to my reading journal playlist from 2026, as well as a video about how to catch up on your reading journal if you feel like you're slipping behind.